A few of those will be read out a little bit later on, but now Christmas decorations usually consist of twinkling lights and fir trees, something like that, but it's the time of year when there's also a rise in the amount of graffiti on our streets, so British Transport Police are stepping up patrols to try and prevent it.
Well, last Christmas, vandals carried out almost 3 times the number of offences on trains and stations compared to a typical period in November. Graffiti now accounts for 6% of all crime on the railway.
Well, it's a problem on the streets as well. In Britain, it's estimated the bill for clearing up graffiti amounts to a staggering £1 billion, no less, a year.
Let's talk about that. Most would agree that graffiti is ugly. Some urban artists, mostly notably Banksy, there he is, some of his work at least, gained international acclaim for their work. So is graffiti or street art more acceptable these days?
David Lee is an art critic. He's here with the Conservative MP, Anne Widdecombe, to discuss it all. A very good morning to you both. Well, David, are there differences between different types of graffiti, or is it all art?
But I wouldn't call any of it art. I mean, a lot of people perform these dubious and illegal activities and call it art in order to give it some kind of credibility and respectability. But most of it isn't. You know, the kind of stuff we've got around the studio here, these tags, it's pretty mindless, and I wouldn't want it near my house. It's little above, actually, this kind of scribble, the bestial level of dogs urinating up lampposts in order to establish some kind of territoriality. But you know, you mentioned Banksy earlier on, and I passed one on the way to the studio this morning, quite by chance, and it was a chap sat against a wall, trompe-l'oeil, on a bench smoking a pipe, and it added a little infinitesimal something to the experience of seeing that. It wasn't an eyesore. It was a little something. Whether or not it's art, I don't know. I wouldn't call it art personally, but
OK, but added something to the area, you thought.
Anne Widdecombe, it adds something?
Well, of course, as we've just heard admitted, the overwhelming majority of it adds nothing at all. It looks hideous. It can depress neighbourhoods. It's a sign to the vandals that they're winning. And I congratulate the British Transport Police on deciding to clamp down. I mean, we have to show common sense about it. If the only thing we ever saw was the very odd, very clever, slightly spirit-uplifting piece of graffiti, we would have no problem at all. You and I know that is not the essence of graffiti.
Well, but let's just stay with that, because you know there's a level of agreement between you about the vast majority of it, but that uplifting, clever, thought-out stuff, where do you stand on that? Because it is, after all, criminal damage if you do it without permission.
It's criminal damage, and it's got to be removed. I mean, I think the idea that you never smile at something very clever would be rather odd. Of course you do. But it is still criminal damage. It still does have to be removed. It still does cost taxpayers money to remove it.
But it does have public support. Banksy...
It wouldn't if there was too much of an outbreak of it.
No, sure. And I agree with you
on
the brain dead trash. But there is a piece in Bristol which he put up about 3 months ago, which was on a council building, on a gable end, a plain gable end of somebody hanging out of a window. He painted trompe-l'oeil window, somebody hanging out. The husband who'd returned a little too early, staring out of the window. The council were going to remove it, and the public actually petitioned the council to have it preserved. So, you know, there is something. Maybe we ought to change the law so that certain types of the better quality are allowed.
How do you judge it?
Perhaps the council could commission it, and that would make it lawful. But the fact is that that is not the normal run of graffiti, and I don't think we should be sidetracked from what is a pretty good effort that's now going on.
Well, let's have another go at this stuff that appears on trains and on walls and all over the place. I mean, some of it does show some invention as well. OK, it is criminal damage, but where would you stand on it, the stuff that just clearly isn't just vandalism?
Well, I saw those New York trains 30 years ago that were plastered with graffiti, and although the individual scrawls and squiggles were nothing, when you saw the entire train covered with colour, it was a spectacular sight. There's no question about it.
Would you like it on your house? Would you like to come home and find a piece of beautiful graffiti on your house? No matter how well executed, the answer is you wouldn't.
Actually, I disagree with you. I don't want to see a squiggle. I'm president of the Royal NIMBY Society. But if Banksy put something which was a little addition to the gable end of my house, I wouldn't mind at all.
Well, stay off the gable end of mine. I can tell it.
All right, Banksy, message to you if you're listening. Don't get thanks one with it.
Thank you both very much for that. And lots of you can email us, you can text us. Already people doing so on our website.